So let's remember a few things about it. So we can go back to perfect competition, where you have infinite buyers, infinite sellers, a homogeneous product. So like, no matter who has the product, it's all the same, right? Say grain or something like that. A specific type of apples. Sorry, I'm a little sick again, so my voice is not great, but got my homogeneous product, and and they're this means that all the sellers and really the buyers are price takers. So you go to the market and there is a given price. So you have two things. You have the big market, and then you have the individual. So remember, there's an infinite number of individuals. The sum of these, and they say infinite, but obviously we're just talking about a gigantic amount. Okay, so think of the number of farmers in the United States, or even in the world, and think of the number of consumers in the world who eat bananas or who eat apples or something like that. So you have a market, and the market is determined by your general supply and demand, okay? And you get this equilibrium price quantity given a natural market, right? And you go over to that thing here, and boom, okay? So remember, this is perfect competition. You have the demand, and that's equal to the price, is the demand curve is equal to the price, and they say is equal to the marginal revenue, okay? So now the marginal revenue is constant because the price of the good is always the same, no matter how many I sell. Unlike in the market, if you have an increase in supply, in order to sell the extra goods, you have to lower the price, right? Get more of these consumers here. But here we've got this equilibrium here, and then you've got the farmers, and when they go to market, they take their product to market. And my dad has a farm, and so I've driven the truck there. They weigh the truck with the grain, they do some tests, they try to figure out the quality of the grain, wheat, right? And so some of you have nut farms, dairy farms, things like that. And they would weigh it, they'd figure out the quality of, because you have these different scales. This is the market of wheat, let's say second, I don't know what the classifications are, but second class wheat or whatever. You've got highest quality and something next to it. So they weigh it, they figure out where you are, and they figure, okay, that's the market. They go open up the newspaper, what's the price today? And they say, I don't know, what is the price of wheat nowadays? Like, I remember a few years ago it went really high. Back then it was $4 a bushel. And let's say it's $5 a bushel. Okay? So the farmer says, oh, it's $5 a bushel. He either takes that price, he has no negotiation. He doesn't have any negotiation power, right? He can't say, well, I'd like $5.50 or $6. They say, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll store it in the silo. We'll charge you $0.01 a month per bushel, usually, something like that. And you just call us up and let us know when you want to sell it. And so you can do that, but they are always price takers. They take whatever the market price determines. That's the price they give. So how do you figure out if you're profitable? Well, theoretically, they're not profitable because they have these marginal cost curves. Which, by the way, the marginal cost curve I'm going to show is the supply curve for the individual farmer above the demand price marginal revenue curve. Okay? So what that means is, let's say you have a shift in demand, and you've got this new demand, and so farmers might produce more wheat that year, or some of the people that have their wheat sitting in the silo say, oh, there's more demand, right? I can get a higher price goes up, I'm going to sell the wheat that's sitting in the silo. I'm just waiting for the right moment, now's the right moment, and let's say that happens, and now it's $5.50 a bushel. Boom, I hit my target. That's the new price. That means that's the new demand curve, is the price curve, is the marginal revenue curve, right? And so the supply curve is that curve here, and as the price changes, so does the amount the individual farmer will produce. Or again, he's got it in the silo, he's gonna produce more. He's gonna call them up, say, hey, sell it, okay? So, you know, he's got a marginal cost he's gotta pay to keep that stuff in the silo, and so he's got a kind of a marginal cost of keeping that wheat sitting around. Of course, you can think the big picture here. When he goes to plant, he's looking at how much does he expect. Now you can actually fix this with crop insurance. You can say, okay, I'm going to guarantee a certain price. I look at my various cost curve, right? Average, marginal, and figure out how do I maximize, how much crop should I produce to maximize. Now, really what a farmer does is he probably plants, if he can get the price he wants, he'll go out and guaranteed he'll go out and plant the entire field. But here, so again, we're talking theory, not necessarily, as a joke, that you've got a theory, it's, oh sure, that works in reality, but does it work in theory? So that's a whole other thing though. But this is the picture of that perfect competitor. So you got the market price. This is good for all competition. There is a market, there is a supply, there is demand. It just depends on, you know, if you're a monopoly, this is your demand and supply curve, right? You are the market. If you're an oligopoly, you would come the four firms together to look like this, and that's a little more complicated. I have a video waiting for you. It's not I'm sorry about the quality. It's some reason the thing went out on me, but out of focus. But here, so this just kind of reminding you what the perfect competitor looks like, okay? So now let's go to the monopolistic competition, which I think is a little, the term is terrible, it's a terrible term, but it is a little more realistic. You still got many buyers and many sellers. So the thing is, because there's not this theoretical infinite, you know, infinity only exists in the mind, but there are just a lot. So they're not price takers. No, right? They actually have a little control on the market. So so just remember that market here. The issue here excuse me. The issue here, hope you didn't see that. The issue here is you have a hetero. So you have differences in products. So think of Starbucks coffee, right? So because there is a difference in the product, so in a perfect competitive, they're not going to advertise. Why would I throw money away on advertising Jimmy's farm, right? You say, hey, buy my wheat. It doesn't matter, nobody cares, right? Yeah, I'm sure you have great wheat and all that, but it's not going to have an effect on the market because it just doesn't matter, okay? But, now let me, so, Starbucks coffee, they have a supply and demand curve, so they have their, think of a marginal cost curve. They've got a demand curve that looks kind of like this, okay? And so, marginal revenue looks maybe like this. So they're going to supply at marginal revenue equals marginal cost, right? Now, theoretically, in the long run, they don't make profit either, but, you know, is that realistic? Eh. I'm actually drawing a gap here because that gap would be very small, if anything at all. I think in the textbook it's not even there. But so the thing here is that because they have a heterogeneous product, they have a downward sloping demand curve. It's not downward like a market demand curve. It's not very steep, but it is downward. So they have a little bit of pricing power, right? So go back to like a supply and demand. So they supply where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, right? That's always where the individual firm supplies. And they can actually, if they have a change in the marginal cost curve or something, suddenly the price of beans goes up, their marginal cost curve goes like this, they can raise the price. Okay, the price was here, now it's here. So Starbucks has a little bit of pricing power, and that's the big difference between monopolistic and perfectly competitive, is that there is a bit of pricing power with the monopolistic competitor. Okay? They have a good, again, I go back to kind of the Starbucks example, or think of like a, let's say QFC versus, or you have Walmart and Save Mart and things like that, and they are different. So if you go into one, the price is not the same as it is in the other, and it's because they separate themselves from their competition. They advertise. Why would you advertise in a perfectly competitive? Well, you wouldn't. In a monopolistic competitive, you would advertise, and you would advertise because, think of why they would advertise. You're saying, look, we are not the same. We are not just your regular old producer. We are different. We are better, right? And so they advertise to set themselves apart from their competition. Okay? And again, I just really focus on that. The idea that they have this slightly downward sloping demand curve. We don't know what it might look like, but this means they have pricing power. So you can tell that it's elastic. It's an elastic curve, right? So they don't have a lot of pricing power. They're not a monopoly. They're not an oligopoly. But unlike an oligopoly, so I'll get into, again, I have a video on that, but they don't really care about what their competition does. So think of Walmart versus Save Mart versus whatever. If Save Mart has a sale, Walmart is not going to go, oh my God, we got to have a sale, right? No, they're going to go, we have a plan for how we're going to sell product, and so we're going to follow that. Starbucks doesn't say, oh, I wonder what Tully's is doing. What is Columbia doing, right? Columbia, as if they're in the same category. What's the was it Don something Francisco? That's pretty good coffee. I'm trying to remember the Maxwell House, and those are really horrible coffees. Okay, so I drink Starbucks coffee only, pretty much. But because I think they do set themselves apart. Now, when they lower their price, I'm like this myself. So price goes down, I'm jumping on it. I buy a bunch, right? I was in Costco yesterday with these Costco protein bars. They go, oh my God, they're $6 off. I bought 5. I'm gonna go back and buy a bunch more because I go through them pretty quick. But what the thing there is they set themselves apart. They're a heterogeneous product. They have a little bit of pricing power. And remember what else I was going to say on that. I think that's probably good on that. That's kind of, I have some other videos on the different takes on this stuff, but remember, so you can check out the PowerPoint. I have to remember anything else, what else I would maybe add to that, but I think that's good. I'll watch the oligopoly video I have. That's a pretty good one, I think, hopefully. Hope that was clear-ish.